Cat 5 hurricane, the third most intense storm in the nation's history. Yesterday at 02:30, Hurricane Rita makes landfall near Port. Send a command assessment element into the incident area to get a better idea of the damage that has been done by the hurricane. So what we'd like to do here is General White is going to talk to you about the search and rescue mission and the complexities that are involved there and how they put that and coordinate that together.
Morning, sir. About 2 weeks after Katrina, all the interagencies for the SAR plan, the air assets that were going to be involved in the search and rescue, we were able to glean a lot of the problems that we ran across in Katrina and pull some of those things together. What I'd like to do is give you a quick, as we hit boots on the ground on that Wednesday evening, fortunately, we had 2 days to get out and find the people and the nodes that were going to be involved in the air picture and the search and rescue to try to coordinate, orchestrate it to work better than it did in Katrina. So we had a couple of days of notice. Next slide. Then, as we all know, on Fridays, the hurricane moved in. This is an overview of our plan. You can see the agencies that are involved in the lower left-hand corner and really the piece Thursday and Friday. Next slide. As soon as the hurricane moves in, the first folks on the scene, obviously the Coast Guard, this was our plan. They would sweep the coast for them to do any real valid search and rescue. They can just do recce. Those guys did a great job yesterday morning of flowing in. Admiral Kilkenny on the EWO flows in. He calls himself water skiing in behind the storm as it coasts in. And then the next asset, next slide, we bring in our command and control element that's behind the storm also to help start the coordination process of all those air assets. As the storm moves inland and the winds on the coastline start to subside and the rain squalls and the things that allow us to fly airplanes, of course the Coast Guard and the guys off the Navy can then start their grid search where they would actually go in and look for anybody in distress and start the rescue operation. As that flows north, the first agency in would be our civilian counterparts and our National Guard. Next slide. So those guys come in from in a coordinated manner to search their grids that have been organized through the air tasking order process. And then finally, if needed, and in this case, we determined early on that they were going to be needed, the DoD assets. Next slide. Here comes the Army and the Air Force with their search assets, and they have grid out of Katrina. From early on, we knew the coordination piece was a problem. That's why we titled this slide Interagency Search and Rescue. We've got a national search and rescue plan, but typically it's designed to rescue small numbers of people. Onesies and twosies off the boats are small scale type rescue operations. As we saw in New Orleans, we haven't had a search and rescue. We need a national plan, and that's what we're going to work on. That would involve, because we had the benefit of time in this scenario, where we could come in, coordinate with those interagencies, develop a plan, and then execute the plan. We may not have that time in an earthquake scenario or a submarine incident where we've got to do a mass search and rescue with all the players working. The big lesson learned is we can be more effective and more efficient, but we don't have air assets running to each other and all of the problems that are associated with it. At least we can have a plan. It never goes as planned, but we can adjust as we flow along. From the point of knowing where this thing is going to hit and the grid sectors they're going to use, that can be implemented. Mm-hmm. So that's our takeaway, sir, in a short recap of how this plan was put together. And I would just say we had 2 days to do it, fortunately.
Safety, important points there, I think. The safety piece sort of goes without saying, but the central control and the comprehensive coverage precludes the independent operators right. In the airspace, and that's what we're trying to get at. They did a great job of pulling that together, Mr. President.
I'm not sure if my boss has anything to add. General Mays over at in Tyndall Air Force Base. Sir, can you hear us out there? Do you have anything to add to that?
No, John, you covered it very well. I'll just reemphasize that this was a multi-service, multi-agency effort, and the SAVE record to date on both the Rita and Katrina side speak a lot to the professionalism of the aviators that participated. Thank you.
Yeah, having said that about Katrina, there were still some amazingly heroic efforts in
pulling people off roofs. And I don't know how many sorties were flown in Katrina, but there must have been thousands of sorties.
Well, as I left last Wednesday, it was close to 18,000 sorties flown. Now, sir, that includes every agency,
Right.
and it's a lot of the airlift in there too.
And your point is, on a Katrina, had there been a better coordinated effort between guard choppers, Coast Guard choppers, regular Army choppers, it would have been
Yes,
less
sir.
dangerous?
It would have been a better orchestrated plan. You wouldn't have seen a lot of, for instance, one of the things that we learned out of that, we had someone that needed to be rescued, and that comes up on the net. 5 helicopters show up at the same place to get one person. That's the sort of simplistic thing we'd like one time, and that's the right thing to do. But if we can have a national plan that would address a search and rescue at this magnitude, is what we're out to try to do.
Good.
Sir, if I might add, I would say that it wouldn't necessarily make it less dangerous. I would tell you that professionalism and the plan came together, and I believe that all the participants would agree that with the fog that we had and the weather that we were battling, nighttime, all the things that went into that environment, that I'm not sure we'd make it less dangerous. There may be a factor there, but the main point would be, with a national plan, we'll have a quicker jump start and an opportunity to save more people. That would be my input there.
National plan, good training against the plan gets you to this state faster in extremis, and that's the goal.
Part of the reason I've come down here, and part of the reason I went to NORTHCOM, was to better understand how the federal government can plan and surge equipment to mitigate natural disasters. And I appreciate very much, General, your briefing, because it's precisely the kind of information that I'll take back to Washington to help all of us understand how we can do a better job in coordinating federal, state, and local response. The other question, of course, I asked was, is there a circumstance in which the Department of Defense becomes the lead agency? Clearly, in case of a terrorist attack, that would be the case. But is there a natural disaster which of a certain size that would then enable the Defense Department to become the lead agency in coordinating and leading the response effort? And that's going to be a very important consideration for Congress to think about. Okay? Good. Thank you.